Alright guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be replacing the exhaust manifold studs into the block of my SR20DET. The reason why we're doing this is because I'm installing a new turbo with a new set of headers, and the last thing you want to do is snap one of these old studs because they're old, they've been through a lot of abuse and heat, and probably not properly installed. So today we're going to be properly installing these, put them right in place. You want to first run the nut on every one of these, and you're going to want to do the double nut technique, which requires you to remove one of these nuts and install facing the other nut, and here you tighten them both together, so when you're installing it by hand you'll be able to feed it all the way to the block until it hits this little neck right here. You don't want to go too tight, you don't have to really wrench down. There's no current torque specs for the installation of these studs. I'll say just snug them up. They don't have to be really tight, but you definitely do not want to go too far into the new threads, because these are the threads that are going to hold your exhaust manifold in place. And behind each one of these nuts you can see it has a little locking mechanism. It acts like a washer, a lock washer actually, to the header of the car, and it helps it grip in place. So we want to try not to damage it as we install the studs in, because when we install the exhaust manifold back on the car, we want to not have any damage here, so we don't run across any problems later. So after you install the first one facing back, you want to do the opposite thing with the next nut when you double nut it. So the faces of the nut are actually pushing against each other and not damaging the locking mechanism. So that's a quick little tip. We're gonna run every nut all the way down on every one of these studs, and we're gonna keep one nut in place, and we're just gonna use the second nut to double nut it. So this doesn't take very long. I'm gonna do it real quick. And the reason why I'm doing this is to make sure that none of these studs are damaged prior to installation, because you don't want to really file anything once it's installed in the car. There's very little room down there. It's a little tight, and it's quite frankly, it can be a pain in the butt. So we do this just to make sure everything's working properly. Again, don't forget to use lubrication when you're actually applying pressure to this. You don't want to cross thread anything, and definitely make sure you don't cross thread inside the housing in the engine block, because that could be quite a problem. You need to tap and die and possibly get a different stud that will fit the new bore size of the hole. Alright, everything seems to be working properly here. The next step is going to be to never seize the end that's going to go into the car, and a lot of people may get confused, but just remember that these studs, they have different sizes on next to the neck, or not exactly the neck, this little bevel area is a little thicker part of it. Either way, you have more threads on one side and less threads on the other. The shorter side goes into the block, the longer side goes to your headers. So first thing we're going to do is put some NTCs. I strongly suggest you use a Mariners Choice or some kind of high temperature NTCs, because this area of the car is going to go through a lot of heat. Not necessarily 2400, but I find that this works best, and in case of future problems it'll be easy to remove them and they won't be real stuck in there. So let's go ahead and start seasoning them up. Got gloves on. Strongly suggest you use gloves. This thing can get pretty messy. You don't need a whole lot. You just need to put a small coat all around it. Alright, we're gonna do these in every one. You just want to get those threads. You don't want to kick it up too much, but you definitely want to make sure you coat all the threads properly. Alright, now that I have them all nice and coated up, I'm gonna move them over to the car, and we're gonna start installing them into the car. Oh, here we go, missing one. Make sure you do all 8. Count your studs so you don't lose any in the process, because nothing sucks more than having to reorder parts and wait for them so you can finish your project. Alright, now that we have them nice and coated, we're going to move over to the car and install these babies. Alright guys, once you get your nuts double nutted, you want to stick them in and thread them by hand. You'll see them be coming to the end of my stud. And I'm just gonna snug it in there, just real lightly. You don't have to go too tight. There's no torque specs available for installing these, so just do it by hand. You can just use, one finger, and you can see it's tight. That would be tight enough. Make sure that when you do the double nut procedure, you are able to fit both of your wrenches in place. So make sure you check them out before, because you don't want to run into trouble removing these nuts later because your wrenches don't fit. That's pretty much all you have to do right there. Break them loose. So all you need to remove really is the front one, because all the rest you want to leave them there until you're ready to install, because you don't want to lose these nuts. So it's always best just to leave them in place until you're ready to install your manifold. Mine is currently getting ceramic coated, so Alright guys, that completes the installation of all the studs. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As soon as I get the rest of my parts in, I'll make another quick video of how to install the manifold and how to install the turbo. All those parts that have torque specs to them. So I'll be going over all those torque specs, and I'll post a sheet up with all the information that I have in hand. Hope you like the video. Please hit the like button.